2.
Welcome to the Clarinet Ninja Podcast. This is episode number 1. My name is Jay Hassler. That music that you heard at the beginning of the podcast is my good friend, Mr. James Danderfer, a fantastic jazz clarinet player that if you like what you hear, I want you to go down to the show notes and click on his links so that you can hear more of what he does, the compositions he writes, as well as the wonderful playing he does on the clarinet. And in this episode, I've got my good friend, former teacher, and world-famous clarinet player, Ricardo Morales. He was nice enough to come in and talk for quite a while. For so long, as a matter of fact, I'm going to have to split this into 2 different episodes. So thank you, Ricardo, for so much time. This first episode, we're going to talk about the early days of him being principal clarinet of the Metropolitan Opera. And some really fun stories about how he got to be the clarinet player that he is, how that worked with his family, the things that went into his education and his experience, as well as some hilarious stories about being the new kid on the block in New York City in the late 90s. In addition to that, I want you to know about the Clarinet Ninja Dojo. It is a place for adults to learn the clarinet from me. And in this program, you get quite a bit of me. There are some things in the website, lots of things in the website to support you and help you learn. But primarily what you get is me every week in a group setting, helping you learn how to play the clarinet, answering your questions, and giving you specific advice. So I would love for you to check that out. I'm going to leave all that information in the show notes, as well as information on how to get the music of James Danderfer. And let's get to it. Let's talk to Ricardo Morales, my friend and my teacher.
Answer, don't do any math, just guess.
Okay.
How many years you and I have known each other?
Oh, man. Let me see. Jesus. Close to 25 years.
29 years.
What? Dude, that's a little extreme.
Okay. How old were we when we met?
Oh, well, I think that we must have been then, dude, like 24.
Yeah. So that's
We
crazy.
were
Right?
so innocent back then.
Oh, I know, totally, right? I remember I came from Los Angeles to take a lesson with you before auditioning for Manhattan School of Music.
Mm-hmm.
I was very nervous. And I remember taking a lesson in what was the smallest apartment I've ever seen you live in. That was a small apartment.
Yes, dude. Oh,
And so here's another thing that I've been thinking about a lot, because after hearing you play the Mozart Concerto on Christmas Eve, 29 years after I first heard you play it in your living room, it's wild to me, the sound I want to hear from you. Obviously, like, you play how you play, but like the thing that I hear in my head when I hear you is you playing on a LeBlanc Opus clarinet with a Johnston mouthpiece. Like that's the sound. That was like the first imprint of hearing you play.
yeah.
Let's take everybody back to 1996. I'm curious to know, given how many times you have changed your clarinet since then.
Mhm.
LeBlanc was a real disruptor in the clarinet world at a time.
Absolutely.
I'm curious to know what you took from that clarinet that has been a through line for the things that you value when you're switching equipment. What are you looking for? I'm asking a pretty general question,
Yeah.
but I feel like I can just let you go on that.
Well, the thing, actually, just for a second,
Sure.
the first time I was looking, before I played the LeBlanc, I was playing on Yamaha clarinets. And I was quite happy. They're very good. They don't break down. It's solid. Then I got to solo with the Chicago Symphony because I had won 17 magazine national concerto competition, and the grand prize was to be able to solo with one of the major orchestras. And for the grand prize for that year was to get to solo with Chicago. I have always loved Larry Combs, but I remember going there. The first thing I know of myself is that it's a double-edged sword. I like the standard stuff, but I like it with a twist. That's always been my thing. It's like, I like the normal stuff, but with a little extra something. And I remember going to my rehearsal, and they were rehearsing Otello, with Schulte, Kirita, Hanover, Pavarotti, all that stuff. I was just waiting before they were going to finish that rehearsal and then do the rehearsal for the orchestra concert later on that week. I'm like, wait, this is something different. And it was like, this was unbelievable, beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, it was really And normal planets have something rounder and very smooth and beautiful, unusual. And I was really loving it. And I didn't think much of that because at the time, it was my first time meeting Larry Combs and stuff like to say, hello, Mr. Combs, blah, blah, blah.
How old were you at this point?
Yeah. So you see, I won the competition when I was 17, and then it took 2 years for me to get there. So I was 19 when I went over there to play in Chicago. I didn't think of asking what instrument he was playing because I just assumed it was great. And I was mesmerized with the sound. A few months later, I met Tom Rittenauer, who happened to live in the Orlando area. He told me, hey, you should try this clarinet, see what it's like. And then I played 2 notes and I said, oh, this really took me, just I was really moved by that one. And then, like a month into my playing, the LeBlanc Bell, which was their little magazine, and then the ad with the cover with Larry Combs, and then it's a record. Oh, that was happening because I didn't even know that he was playing something else, but I could recognize it in the sound.
One other question: this concerto competition you said was 17 magazine?
Yeah, the 17 magazine.
Wasn't that like a girls' fashion magazine?
Yes, but
I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Like a teenage fashion magazine that was very popular in the 80s and up to the 90s. They had all kinds of projects encouraging people to reach their goals, etc. And then, so they had gotten together with General Motors. So it was the 17 magazine and General Motors National Concerto Competition. But it was interesting because then they usually had violin category and piano, and then they had a revolving category, some odd, whatever, other instrument, And when I was in high school, it just so happened that 1 year the clarinet division was open, and I was lucky enough to win the clarinet division. And then they will have a grand concert with the winner of each division, and the jury together and decide whether yes or no to grant a grand prize winner. I was very lucky to be named the grand prize winner for that one. So that's how.
So what piece were you playing?
Weber second concerto. Yeah, the competition had a number of pieces that you have to play, some American music. So they have Norman Del Hoyo Sonata, some choices. I chose the Percy Carey Parable for solo clarinet because I thought it was very cool. And even though it's melodious and a little bit, it has a little longing and a little weird in a good way. So I really liked it. So you have to play that. And there was some of the standard romantic stuff. You have to play Brahms Sonata and then some Weber. And then the concerto, the prescribed concerto was Weber too. But other pieces, frankly, I don't even remember what was the other pieces that I had to play. But I remember Percy Carey and the Brahms too. And then that Weber. But it was very cool. It was at USC, that competition, that year.
So you're 19 years old there.
No, 17.
You were 17, but you were 19 by the time you got to play.
Yeah.
Because all that happened before. Then you play the concerto. Then you meet Larry Combs.
Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Combs. You fell in love with LeBlanc, but you didn't know yet. You're in Florida. So you're in Florida.
Right.
And so I know a lot of stories about you. Some of them were out of order. And some of them I've told so many times, I think I'm making parts of them up. And the story I want to tell, because I want you to finish, is you were frustrated at a certain point taking auditions when you were in Orlando because your orchestra was going to close. You had gotten so frustrated, you were going to say, forget it. I'm not going to take the audition at the Met.
Yeah.
And then there was some story about you getting a phone call saying, oh, I just heard someone on the radio saying the Met auditions are completely blind. You have to take that one.
Yes.
This is basically the story, right?
Very true.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about a feeling that the rest of us have had more frequently than you of like, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Yeah. There's two elements I've realized over the years that are the most important to pursue a career in music. The first one is an intense love and fever about doing. So a passion for it so that the many hours we spend they don't feel like torture. I realized that, over the years I practice a lot, but I realized I like the process, trying to figure it out and going slowly and say, oh, it doesn't work. Yeah, weird, but let's see how it goes. So I don't get easily frustrated with the lack of success. For some reason, it's just like, it doesn't bother me so much. So then many hours go by and then the work has been done. So you have to have that passion. Then the second most important one is very thick skin. For sure. Because the thing we are dealing with something uh, that is so subjective. Okay, so it's so subjective, and there's so many elements, that go into an audition. Not only, I mean, forget about, you have the being able to play the list and being able to play it at that day, you know, and trying to make no mistakes, and then hoping that the people that you're playing that are listening find your tone agreeable. And then, so then it depends also, even if you play with an agreeable sound, and then somebody who is, depending when the time that you play, maybe you're playing like right before lunch and people are like all hangry and lose patience or whatever. So then they're like, no, forget. Or if you play too late in the game, oh, we already have 12 people to listen to that. It's good, but I think 12 is enough. And then, so there's so many parts to the equation that have to do with luck, that have absolutely nothing to do with how we prepare, etc. So that's why that actually is disconcerting for some people, but that is, to me, is the thing that always kept me going, because I have zero control about that. We really don't have control about that. Only have control basically about how we invest our time in the preparation before. Okay, and then after that, it's just too many variables that are a little bit crazy to enumerate. But for those three things, love and passion, thick skin, and a little bit of luck. Those are the three elements that are super important in order to have a lasting career here in this business, for sure.
I want to get in the mind of a depressed 21-year-old Ricardo Morales who
Yes.
I'm not going to take this audition. And then you
Yeah,
change your mind. How did that all feel?
Well, the thing was that I had been doing, I was very lucky to have won already my third audition. So I shouldn't have been complaining so much, because I had a principal job in Florida. It was great. And I was very happy. The orchestra sounded great. And I was learning a lot and I had great colleagues and all that. But we are always striving. And then, the thing is that as you prepare, you have to know which kinds of jobs are more suitable for one. Of course, we have dreams, but sometimes I end up auditioning because we just need a job. And then sometimes our style of playing might be necessarily as agreeable to the ensemble. So, of course, I was going to every job available, because you never know. I had, even in that place where we would call failure, I was still very lucky, because I was making it to the finals, basically in most of the auditions that I took before the Met. So I was afraid of becoming what we call a professional runner-upper, So I was afraid. I said, just like, it's pretty good, but that was great. That was excellent. Great job. But, it's like that. So then it is, and it is very difficult to be able to do that. So yes, that for that audition, I was already like, I just, no, I don't want to do this one. Forget it. And then I went. Then the story about that was, I got the call because there was an interview of one of the musicians in the orchestra where they were talking about how I had transformed the orchestra in a relatively small period of time. It was because they started doing the auditions, everything behind the screen, etc. So then I got a call from a good friend that told me, you have to do it. You have to do this one, because this one will give you a very good chance. Yeah. And so then the other thing is that, I wasn't discouraged like I was going to quit. I was like, I'm just going to pass there. Maybe let me just try for, my plan was, let me try for a military job, one of the best, because at least you have to play a bunch of notes. In that year, there were many positions and many of the orchestras had multiple spots. So I was thinking, I don't have to even be number one. It's maybe number two, maybe, or number three. That's still a pretty good possibility for a job, So the thing is that then, since I had already sort of given up on it, when I started practicing it, then I started looking at the list, and I was really surprised. Like, there's a lot of stories, a lot of staccato stuff in there, So it was like, whoa. That was very unusual, much more so than our typical orchestral, stuff. Yeah, the typical. So for orchestra, you have Mendelssohn Scherzo and Beethoven 4, basically. That's it, And then so I'm seeing all these things from Verdi and Rossini and what have you. And it's like, wow. And then some of these long, beautiful solos, like the long solo in Force Out Destino, not only the overture that everybody knows, but the long one for the beginning of the third act and all the things. And it's like, wow, man, this is like yeah, they want somebody who has chops, but seeing Tosca and all the things, like you have to try to play in this is you cannot just play good clarinet. You have to go sort of a little juicy and see how you go. And so I prepared, and I had in my mind, I said, well, I'm gonna go a little rogue. I'm gonna go a little rogue, just play much more rubatos than the traditional stuff, just in these long solos, etc. So my plan was, you know what, the way that I'm playing this, knowing how many of my colleagues that the audition were doing, it's like, I'm not going to pass the first round the way I'm playing this. So I'm just gonna go and play my way. So it's like I'm either not going to pass the first round, but if I do pass the first round, there's a very big possibility that I could win, because for sure I know that nobody's gonna be playing it this way. So
Right. Okay.
okay. So I mean, but for me at that point, it's like I'm just getting used to the no and no. It's like, hey, just try something different and see what happens. And yeah, so I was talking about it. It was like, sometimes it just takes that bit of courage to, be yourself a little bit more, because we are always taught to be in the middle of the road, not too loud, not too soft, not too fast, not too slow, everything trying to find this bullseye for auditions. And and I remember where many of my colleagues at the time in the orchestra, I remember, so what are you looking for whenever you're hearing? Back then, it was like always the three of the guys that I really admire in the orchestra, they were like, character. And I have to say something. And why character? Well, because, at least maybe because of the nature of that job, you're dealing with, playing music in a collaboration with stories that are really dramatic and really crazy. So it's not enough to just play pretty and pretty sound in the box when somebody's talking about, okay, I'm going to give up my love for my lover's family, even though I know this will be out of my life. You cannot be like, right? It's like a little severe, right? So the story is like, oh man, it's like a little tough. So you have to, and that one was almost self-explanatory that you can be a little bit more dramatic than usual. So that was the approach. I mean, like, uh, uh, and frankly, that was that day on that hour or whatever. And who knows? Maybe the next day it would have been a different result. Sometimes you're just lucky.
I think what has happened subsequently in your career would tell us it wasn't necessarily really lucky. Jim Ogdenbeanie said to me at some point, we were talking about you. He said, Ricardo doesn't leave anything to chance. He said, it's very funny because in how you're talking about taking chances, it's very funny because I know exactly what he's saying. You have a plan and you carry that plan out. The plan itself might be a bit rogue, but your approach to executing the plan, not rogue.
Right.
Because I was thinking about this, I was very excited that we were going to talk tonight. And I was thinking as I was going home on the train, and it feels even bad to say this. I've heard you play, I don't know how many hours of clarinet, and some of it's sort of casual and off the cuff. I think I've heard you miss one note.
You haven't been paying attention.
And it's very funny because I remember the note. I can tell you which one it was with Rare Rhapsody. And you didn't actually even miss it. You just almost missed it. And I remember the look of surprise on your face. And to me, that's always the thing. Somebody else said, Ricardo doesn't hope things are going to go well. He prepares so that he knows they're going to go well. Having spent so much time with you learning the clarinet, but like how, because you say how you think you're doing it, but if that were actually the complete version of it, all of your students would be able to do it, and only some of them have been able to. And I'm talking about me as one of the ones that hasn't been able to.
You're doing it. You're doing it very well.
It's an interesting thing because one of the other things you were surprised about when we were talking music, clarinet, learning stuff, you were surprised that in America, or at least in my America, we didn't study the Hindemith book.
Yeah.
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 And that's something that's always stuck with me because there's two things that I know you did that I did not do. And that's learn how to sight sing and use fixed dough at a young age.
Mhm.
And you played in a band with your family that involved mostly rhythm and time.
Mhm.
And I think that those two things had a huge impact on what you bring to the clarinet. And I think you know that, but I think sometimes you forget, or at least you were forgetting in 1996 sometime,
Mhm. Yeah.
that we weren't bringing that.
Yes.
to
Yeah.
it, right?
Yes. I've gotten a little better with that. I'm a little bit nicer these days. No, but because there's many. I mean, yes, because yeah, when you're younger, some of our life experiences we take for granted. So
Right.
that's where the things that as we mature and learn more, we realize that it makes a big difference for sure.
Well, but let me tell you a story I'd tell about you, and I have no idea whether it's true.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. I heard, and I don't even remember who I heard it from, that your parents weren't able to get you a clarinet when you wanted to learn how to play it. So you went to other people's lessons for a year.
Oh,
You even
okay.
had your own
So,
clarinet.
yeah,
Tell me what part of that is true.
actually, yes, but it's much more truncated.
It's-
It was like, yes, when my parents couldn't give me the clarinet immediately when I decided, so they had to save a little bit, but it was only 2 months. It was only
Yeah.
2 months. But then I did go to my teacher's lesson because it was in that school. So I just went every day. So I was like, even from, uh, not being able to know how to put it together, when I was just there. We in the music school, the way they had it was that it was from 7:30 to 12:30, and then from 12:30 to 5:30 was the other group of students. I would just be there, and we'll be there at 7:30 in the room, all the way. Do a little bit of my homework if I had to, but all those 5 hours every day, just listening to his lessons and all that stuff while I was waiting. It was just yeah. And I do remember that when my dad finally was able to give me the clarinet, and he came to the school. I remember, 11-year-old guy, yeah, I just matched from his thanks. I'll look at the room. And just run to my teacher's room. So I was like, it was really great. And I mean, I was just like addicted to the clarinet. And I came home that evening, and my friends came. Hey, come on, Ricky, let's go. Because one of my friends had gotten a new. We're gonna get a ColecoVision. That in between Sega and Atari. They were supposed to be very cool, but I was like, yeah, thanks. Maybe tomorrow. And I remember that day I was into it. And after I was doing about 4 hours, a little bit after 4 hours, my parents and my dad was like, Ricky, maybe you want to save some lip for tomorrow. Save a little for tomorrow. So even then I wasn't able to stop it, stop doing it. But it's like, hey, maybe and actually, frankly, that's the thing that I feel very lucky that that feeling has not really changed for me.
that leads right into something else that I always say about you is that Ricardo is unusually well trained as a musician. Clarinet just makes sense to him. But even more than that, he loves it more than anyone else I know. Right? Like he won't stop playing.
Yeah.
Right? That was always an interesting thing to me. And the thing that's been so much fun for me about the past few years has been working with adults who love to play.
Yeah.
They're playing the clarinet because they love it. Career and success and all that aside, you can take that out. You still love playing the clarinet as much as anybody I've ever known. That's something that is more than a small thing in how things worked out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because yes, I mean, yes, we can say that I've been extremely lucky and very had many opportunities and all that. So, but yes, it is important to be thinking that for most people, and even with the amount of success that I have enjoyed and that I have been given, when you're trying to certain things, just like everybody, for every bit of success people see, there is like 100 or 1,000 tries of things that don't work out, right? So the thing is that only when you love it, then you can keep going. Because I mean, who the hell would continue with that when there's rejection after rejection, or or child, or but what I have done is to change the vocabulary. You see, I don't now I don't think that before is like where I would say, what lost an audition. But you don't really lose when you are working on yourself and the inner growth. So there is, I don't think of it in those terms anymore. It's like, okay, that is important and that would be very nice to get. But the what I find is the internal and personal growth that comes with the work. So it's a little weird because there's a lot of things that we do in the clarinet uh, that we could talk about in technical ways, but the music, like in the clarinet, it's a sublimation of life, right? So as we struggle and work on certain things in the clarinet, it's very similar in the personal world. So it's everything is intertwined. So it's a good opportunity for growth.
I've got a question and then a story I want to immediately follow it. Yeah, I don't know how many people in the clarinet world know it's not just you and your family that plays music really, really well. I think you have 3 brothers that also play music
We're 6 total. So I have 4 brothers and 1 sister.
I know a cellist, a percussionist, and I can't remember.
So the cellist and percussionist, there's a trombonist and conductor and 2 composers,
right?
Who both play piano and violin. So it's like, yeah.
So there was some sort of expectation or something that happened there. I just exposed. I didn't know the full, the full complement of things happening.
Yes.
But your brothers, much like you, that I'm aware of, are also, I would classify as very successful.
Yes,
right?
I'm very passionate. And they're and they are all things that I admire to the core, and I'm very lucky to have each and every one of them are just phenomenal. Yeah.
So
I'm very lucky. Yeah.
So, but here's what was very, very interesting to me. I was on the train home after playing the producers. Rolando, I think your brother lived up.
Yeah.
Right? He lived in Washington Heights, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I lived in Washington Heights, so we were on the A train together a lot. Doesn't know me. I figured out who he is. Right? so whatever. So years go by. Just one day, as New York is, I walk in, and boom, we're standing right there, right? I'm holding the clarinet case, and it's like, oh, I guess I finally have to come clean. Oh, I know Ricardo really well. And this was at a point when the Met job was open after you left. He says, oh, you're taking the audition? And I said, well, no, because when the job was posted, I was in the hospital with blood clots in my brain and I'd almost died. So I didn't think it was the right time for me to take an audition. And he said to me exactly what you would have said. So
yeah. I mean, first of all, Rolando, he's phenomenal. He's not only a percussionist, but he's a composer and he's a pedagogue. He taught at Curtis and at Temple, and he still teaches at Temple. He wrote a percussion book. I mean, I just go, and that's it. But these guys are really multi-talented. And the thing is that this is very funny because one little story about Rolando, which I take with me basically for every concert, which is like I remember coming after the Met, and then I was in my first years here in Philadelphia, and I was playing some concert. I even forgot which piece it was or whatever, and he was here and he was visiting. I'm like, yeah, man, what's wrong? Nothing. Just a little nervous for this concert. And he goes, didn't you want to be the principal in Philadelphia? Well, play now. So, a little tough love, right? Yeah. I thought you wanted to be the principal to make fun of me. Yeah. So so every single time I had to play something that's challenging, that comes to me. I was like, it makes me laugh. I sort of resist the thinking a little bit because it's my fault.
Well, speaking of tough love, this is another story I tell, and I tell it wrong, and I kind of don't care. And by the way, I'm still going to tell people you went to lessons for a year before you got a clarinet. That's not going to change how I tell the story. I remember you telling me at some point. So I first heard the story about you meeting Kalman Opperman for the first time.
Yeah.
You know where this is going, right? And I said, yeah, I remember he told you that you didn't know shit about the clarinet. And you said, no. He told me I didn't know jack shit about
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that actually, he said that.
Yes, absolutely. And I loved him for it. Like, I mean, anybody who has studied with Carl, for instance, in the period will say that they loved him because he was, I mean, because since I was already in the Met, he's wanted to test what you're all about, and so I went to see him, and I think it would be great to, take some lessons with you. Okay, okay, so all right, so start. Let me see what you have. Play a chromatic scale from low E to high E and back. Okay, so I start. Okay, whatever. Not done with one octave. I'm just about to get to the third note. I said, yeah, stand. You, young man, you're not jack shit of a planet playing. Serious like that. I was like, so a little tough, a little angry guy, by that time he was still very young. He was like 79 or 80 or something like that. He's like, hey, I'm gonna kick your ass. And so he's like that. And then I remember that serious in the room is like, but I'm very lucky because as I share about my siblings, I'm the penultimate one, the fifth out of six. And my dad and my family tree is, and my dad is the youngest of eight. And so I had all these cousins and people that were way older, and people who uncles that had gone to Vietnam and Korea, came back a little bit whacked out, really crazy, loving, but a little bit wackadoodle. It's like, whoa, this so and cranky and whatever, unpredictable, right? Well, I was used to dealing with older people like that. So for me, when he asked, hey, you're not Jack Sparrow, player, and a little bit angry, I was like, hey, I didn't wear a lot, but I was like, yeah, but Carl, but that's why I'm here. That's what I said. And so he's like, yeah, okay, okay. Oh, good. Actually, Ricardo, I have this new attitude. Hey, you want to try it? Like immediately. It was like just to test, basically to show who's boss. And once you surrender, then he is like a puppy. He was the sweetest, and always very generous with his time. It was just great.
I never heard the full story. I only heard him tell the Jack shit part of the story. Like, I never heard the rest of it.
No, it was great. I love
So here's a test for your memory. At the end of Stanley's 50th year in the orchestra, you called me and you're like, I got tickets to the Coppola Concerto. You want to come? So, yeah, yes, I want to come. So you and I sat like in the third row and heard him. He was like at 80 years old playing the Coppola Concerto. Was he 70? He was old.
Yeah.
And I remember we went backstage. Do you remember what he said to you?
No.
It was hilarious. He goes, "Hey, kiddo."
And he was so sweet. I mean, like, well, just one little funny story for our friends that will watch this. The first time I actually met him was, you know how sometimes there are some of these little, when they close Columbus Avenue over there, but and so they have all kinds of food trucks and all that stuff. I remember it was one of the few days I was sort of off. I was off. Yeah, I was off for the afternoon broadcast. So I wasn't playing that one. So I just going in there, and it's like, you know, it's toward May, so you're tired, and I just had gigantic scoop of ice cream, and I had back then I had like a huge afro that day. It's like, wow, just walking around, and then I see this bus, and the people from the Philharmonic were loading it just to play a concert in Long Island. And I was like, oh, so I'm just walking around, and I go over there just to see, and then I see Stanley Drucker coming out from Avery Fisher back then, going to the bus. I said, hello, Mr. Drucker. And I think he probably saw this big guy, this fat guy with this big ice cream. I was like, and he just grabbed his face. But yes. So I love it. He's like, I'm Ricardo. I just started over there a few years back, but it's such an honor to meet you. It was like, what? Yeah. And he grabbed, his life there. He's connected. He was hilarious. Yeah. But he was always so encouraging and so happy. Actually, I did get to spend a little bit of time with him in October before he passed out. I just had gone to the Bandura studio, and Manasseh and the group were there, and it so happened that he showed up to pick up some reason. And actually, the previous night he had played seniors orchestra first one in Carnegie, and they have played shows like Always Five and all kinds of stuff. So I'm talking to him. He's perfectly healthy and looking great. But when you're in your mid-90s, it's like it becomes like the ever ready bunny. It's like it's going, and then so. But I was so happy to see that he was up to the very end, playing and loving it, and just fantastic.
I heard him play. It was supposed to be like a warm up for a recital he was playing. He was 88. It was at the buffet showroom back when that was open. It wasn't a warm up. It was like their first run through. And it was amazing because he played the Poulenc, he played the Debussy Rhapsody and some other things.
Yeah.
Good things. And it was good as a first, as first run through. It was good, full stop. Amazing for a full run through. And, it was over and John Manassi was there. That's what made me think of the story. We were talking afterwards and I said, he's the most amazing 88-year-old clarinet player I've ever heard in my life. I can't imagine being able to do that at 88 years old. And John stopped and he goes, yeah, there's a certain point when you're really good for your age, when you're a kid, and then that goes away until you're over 80, I guess. And then, and then all of a sudden, you're good for your age.
I love it. Hilarious.
It was stunning. Going back to like talking about how much you love to play the clarinet, he clearly loved to play the clarinet.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it was very joyful playing. The thing that always struck me about his playing is how much every rhythm was a gesture. Everything that he played had such a feeling of motion.
Right.
And it was almost too much sometimes. Like I feel like it was one of those things that like if you weren't listening, it got your attention, took you out of your seat and said, listen to this. Like seeing it, I don't care, but you're gonna and then put you back down. That's bold stuff. It's
I mean, and that I admire about him so much. He was fearless that way. He's just great. Yeah. So it's something to try to emulate. One little thing that I wanted to tie two things about when we were talking about the time with Opperman and then how like Jim was saying that that I don't leave anything to chance. Well, I've always been trying to be good about preparing, etc. But even when I started taking lessons there with Cal, and actually Mr. Weber also, I took lessons. I took lessons with both of them. It's very cool. And he had so many of his sayings and all that stuff, and he was really fantastic and very generous. But the one that stuck, into my mind and that every Cal student knows, which is very famous, is like practice and hope. But don't hope more than you practice. That's very Cal. He's like, right. So and so he also had that crazy love for the clarinet. And I remember he made one of those etudes that was, for at that time he was writing a lot of the etudes for this beautiful books that got published by Carl Fisher, that he had, and then, one of them was really hard. It's like, I remember he gave it to me and said, but Carl, man, this is so hard. And it's like, come on, it's not that hard. I mean, it's just a matter of hours. What are you, I look at this. What are you talking about? It's just a matter of hours. I mean, it might be 800 hours, but it's just hours.
When I was playing the producers, I was sitting next to a guy in his early 70s. We talked for 6 years, basically. And he told me that he played a show with Opperman 35 years ago. Back then, you couldn't take days off, really. I remember he was telling me how Cal never took a day off. He didn't even take the days he could take off.
Yeah.
And then would be infuriated if his one sub wasn't available on the day he wanted to take off.
Of course.
I guess that would make me angry too.
Yeah, I know. He was always, so intense. He was always working. Sometimes he was like, sometimes it would be too much. He's like, I would go sometimes in between, a rehearsal and before a service. And, the shortest call for the man, it was 3 hours or 4 hours. But it would be like from 11, we'd get out of there around 3, and then I would show up to this place around 3:30, have a concert at 8, and then he'll be like, you're leaving? But the count is 7. I had to go play the concert. Now it was like 4 hours just trying different things and teaching and comparing. And it was just an intense love for the instrument.
I never got to meet him.
Oh,
Yeah, I got to meet Mr. Weber a couple times. I should have gone and taken some lessons with him, but I didn't.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's a whole long list of things I should have done. I don't know if you have those.
Oh, for sure.
So that is episode number 1 of the Clarinet Ninja Podcast. In the second half of this conversation, Ricardo and I do some talk about gear. We talk about clarinets. We talk about mouthpieces. We talk about reeds. We do all that stuff that clarinet players do. So please come back and check that out. Make sure to rate us if you would. That would really, really help get this podcast out in the world. 5 stars. Please, 5 stars. And if you have something nice to say, please write a comment. I would love that. It would feel wonderful. And if you have any ideas of who you want to hear on the podcast or what types of things you want covered, let me know, and I will go ahead and do everything I can to make that happen. So look for episode number 2 with Mr. Ricardo Morales coming soon to a podcast location near you.